Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. In the vast emptiness of space, warfare is usually a game of mathematics. Ships engage each other across distances so great that you never actually see your enemy. You fire a laser and 30 seconds later, a blip on your radar disappears. It is clean. It is sterile. It is safe. The Galactic Council calls this the Gentleman's War. Snipers hiding in the dark, throwing math at each other. But humanity didn't grow up fighting in the dark. We grew up fighting in caves, in trenches, and in alleyways. We don't like math. We like eye contact. Today's story is about the Battle of Sector 7, where a human fleet decided that long range was boring and introduced the galaxy to the terrifying concept of the micro-warp jump. Or, as the captain called it, bringing a shotgun to a sniper duel. If you prefer close-quarters combat over doing homework, smash that like button. And if you want to see how we turn deep space into a bar fight, subscribe and turn on notifications. Prepare for close contact. High Admiral Delos of the Cygnus Ascendancy adjusted his monocle, a cybernetic targeting aid that allowed him to see across light years. He stood on the bridge of the Silver Lance, a vessel designed for one thing: precision. The Silver Lance was essentially a massive particle accelerator with engines. It could strike a coin on the surface of a moon from orbit. Target acquired, the weapons officer hummed, his voice a soothing drone. Human destroyer class. Designation: UNS Rusty Knuckles. Range: 200,000 kilometers. Delos sighed. How quaint. They are trying to close the distance with sublight thrusters. At this speed, it will take them 4 hours to reach effective firing range for their primitive kinetic cannons. Shall I end them, Admiral? Please. Fire the particle lance. Aim for their bridge. Let us make this quick. A beam of silent, invisible energy lanced out from the Cygnus ship. It crossed the 200,000 kilometers in less than a second. It struck the Rusty Knuckles. Or rather, it struck where the Rusty Knuckles was supposed to be. Just as the beam arrived, the human ship vanished. There was no explosion. No debris. Just a sudden, violent reading of Cherenkov radiation. Did we vaporize them? Delos asked, bored. Negative, Admiral, the sensor officer said, confused. They engaged their warp drive. Delos laughed. They are fleeing? Typical. The apes realized they were outmatched. Let them run. We have secured the sector. Admiral, wait, the officer's voice spiked with panic. The warp vector. It was not an escape trajectory. It was inbound. Inbound? You cannot warp inside a gravity well. You cannot warp over such a short distance. The navigational computers cannot calculate the stop point. They will crash into us. Delos looked at the tactical map. A red dot appeared. Not 200,000 kilometers away. Not 10,000 kilometers away. The red dot was inside the defensive perimeter. The proximity alarm screamed, a sound Delos had never heard before, because no enemy had ever gotten close enough to trigger it. Distance. Delos shouted. Distance, 500 meters. Brace for. Boom. Space tore open directly off the port bow of the Silver Lance. It wasn't a clean entry. It was a violent rupture of spacetime. A shockwave of distorted gravity slammed into the Cygnus ship, knocking Delos to the floor. Through the viewport, a monster appeared. The UNS Rusty Knuckles burst out of the warp tunnel. It was close. Terrifyingly close. Delos could see the individual rivets on the human hull. He could see the scorch marks on their armor. He could see the jagged, ugly words painted on the side, "Kiss me." The human ship didn't stop. It fired its retro thrusters, drifting sideways in a power slide maneuver that brought it parallel to the Silver Lance. They were so close that the Cygnus point defense lasers couldn't track them. The targeting computers were designed for long-range intercepts, not for a target that filled the entire sky. They are alongside us, the officer screamed. What are they doing? On the bridge of the Rusty Knuckles, Captain Mad Dog Vance was grinning. He was strapped into his chair with a 5-point harness, chewing a cigar. Welcome to the knife fight, boys. Vance roared. Open the gun ports. Independent fire. If you see a window, shoot it. Range is 400 meters, Captain, the helmsman yelled. We are scraping paint. Good. That means we can't miss. Broadside. Fire everything. The Rusty Knuckles was not a sniper. It was a brawler. It was covered in hundreds of short-range flak cannons, weapons that fired clouds of hot shrapnel. Useless at long range. Devastating at point blank. The cannons roared. Thousands of metal shards shredded the elegant, silver hull of the Cygnus ship. The delicate sensor arrays were stripped away. The solar sails were torn to ribbons. It wasn't a surgical strike. It was a mauling. Admiral Delos scrambled to his feet. The bridge was shaking violently. Sparks showered from the ceiling. "Return fire," he screamed. "Use the particle lance." "We can't," the weapons officer cried. "The lance is a long-barreled weapon. If we fire it now, the energy bloom will destroy us too. They are too close." "Then use the missiles." "The missiles have a minimum arming distance of 5 kilometers. They will just bounce off the human hull without detonating." Delos watched in horror through the cracked viewport. The humans weren't just using guns. He saw human soldiers in magnetic boots walking on the hull of their own ship. They were carrying handheld rocket launchers. They were firing at the Silverlance's bridge windows. One of the rockets hit the glass. Crack. "They are infantry?" Delos gasped. "In a space battle? This is insanity. This is not war. This is a bar fight." The Rusty Knuckles fired its grappling harpoons. Massive steel cables shot across the gap, piercing the Cygnus hull. The cables pulled taut. The two ships locked together in a death embrace. "They are boarding us," the officer wailed. "Security teams report breaches on decks 4, 5, and 6. The humans are using mining saws to cut through the bulkheads." Vance watched the feed on his monitor. "Reel him in," Vance ordered. "Engine room, give me a spin." Spinning up. The Rusty Knuckles fired its starboard thrusters only. Locked together, the two massive ships began to rotate. Like a pair of dancers spinning out of control. The centrifugal force pinned everyone to the walls. But the humans were strapped in. The Cygnus crew, who relied on inertial dampeners that were now failing, were thrown around like ragdolls. "Gravity is our weapon now." Vance laughed. "Hard to aim when you're pulling 9GS, isn't it?" The structure of the Silver Lance, built for elegance, not stress, began to groan. The long, thin neck of the ship twisted. Screech. Metal tore. The Cygnus ship began to break apart under the sheer physical torque of the spin. "Admiral," the Cygnus officer whispered, blood running from his nose. "Structural integrity at 20%. The ship is snapping." Delos looked at the human ship. It was ugly. It was blocky. It was solid. It was built to survive this kind of brutality. "They are animals," Delos whispered. "They do not respect the distance. They do not respect the math." "Detach," Vance ordered. "Cut the cables. All engines full reverse." The harpoons detached. The Rusty Knuckles shot backwards, escaping the death spiral. The Silver Lance, compromised and spinning wildly, couldn't hold itself together. The centrifugal force ripped the alien flagship in half. The engine section flew one way, the command section the other. Explosions rippled along the spine of the broken ship. Vance watched the fireworks. "Splash one," he said, lighting his cigar. "Status." "Hull integrity at 80%, his XO reported. "We lost a few antennas and the paint is scratched to hell. But we're green." "Good. Reload the flak cannons. Spool up the warp drive." "Where to, Captain?" Vance looked at the tactical map. 3 more Cygnus long-range cruisers were hovering 300,000 kilometers away, trying to get a lock. "See those 3 sitting ducks?" Vance pointed. "Let's go say hello. Prepare for micro-jump." On the distant Cygnus ships, the captains watched in horror. They saw their flagship destroyed in close-quarters combat. And then they saw the human ship vanish again. Panic erupted on the alien comms. "Where are they? Where did they go?" "They are in the walls. They are in the subspace. Scramble. Scatter. Do not let them get close." But it was too late. Space tore open right in the middle of their formation. The Rusty Knuckles appeared like a shark surfacing in a kiddie pool. Guns blazing. Harpoons firing. Surprise. Vance's voice broadcasted over the open channel. The microwarp doctrine changed everything. The Galactic Council tried to ban it. They called it reckless endangerment of reality. They said warping that close to a gravity source was illegal. Humanity's response was simple. It's only illegal if you crash. Alien fleets stopped building long-range snipers. They started building armor. They started building spikes. They started building ships that could survive a fistfight. Because they learned the hard way, you can have the best aim in the galaxy. You can have the most advanced math. But if a human teleports behind you with a shotgun, the math doesn't matter. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Sometimes, the best solution to a complex problem is to get uncomfortably close to it. If you prefer up close and personal over safe and distant, hit that like button. Comment below, what would you name your close quarters battleship? I'd name mine The Hug. Subscribe for more stories about humanity ruining elegant warfare. Check your 6. Transmission ended.